Oh, hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Good morning. I just realized when I pushed go live that before I did that, I wanted to take a bite of my breakfast, which is a delicious Noosa coconut flavored yogurt. So I'm just going to shamelessly and unabashedly do that right now. Mmm, delicious. Delicious. This yogurt's a little sweet, this Noosa yogurt. A little on the sweet side, but I like it. This is bad because sugar sucks. But I do like it. Slish. I've also got a coffee here, big giant one, 3-shot today. So I'm ready to go. What's going on out there in the world? Anything happening that, oh my God, can I get a Sunday live just once where there's not some breaking news so we can focus on some guitar stuff? What are you guys talking about? Let's see. Stage right amps. I don't know about those. Todd Roy's talking about running a 2-amp setup with a 5 and a 15-watt amplifier together. There's a little argument about where country of origin, where things are made. I see. Do we agree that it doesn't matter where things are made, or is where things are made important to people? That's an interesting discussion. Have at it if you like, and I'll dive right in. I've got feelings on that. I mean, generally speaking, I think if things are quality and there's advantage to making things, where they can be made more cheaply, obviously, and stuff like that. The cost advantage, that's the big one. Otherwise, we'd all be paying $700 for a toaster, right? Do you want to? But flip side of that coin, Sir guitars and amplifiers, of course, proudly made in California, which is an expensive state to manufacture things in, but lots of advantages to it too, I think. I mean, people end up paying more on the other end, but it's a nice place to live, I think. And you get a quality product made by quality American workers. That's what I think about that. And it's good to employ people locally and all that, right? That care about what they're doing. So I don't think that there's a hard and fast answer, you know what I mean? What else we got here? Let's see. My knees hurt. Talking about a traveler guitar on a suitcase. Traveler guitars are an interesting thing. I really like, just for me, I mean, if I had a guitar for a hotel room or something like that, I think the little baby Taylors are where it's at kind of for me, because they sound really good. They play good. I'm not really so into the idea of the travel electric. I just never have been. Although, do you remember the Chiquita? Is that what they were called? Or is that the fruit from the brand from the, what's the guitar that Billy Gibbons, you would see him with a little bit, and they had a kind of a, the little travel guitar. It wasn't Chiquita, but what the heck was it called from the 80s? Those were cool. I don't know. I just like them. Somewhere in storage in Canada, I have a mini Flying V. That was my second guitar. That's just like a really not great guitar, but I loved it. And I got it when I was a little kid. But yeah, I do like the baby Taylors for travel guitars. I think that's a cool way to go. A little baby acoustic, because then you don't need to like worry about, even an amp. You can just sit down at the couch or in a hotel room or whatever and rock out on those little things. They're cool guitars. Could you show your black Frankie type Strat? I need some inspiration. Yeah, sure. That guitar is in the other room, but I can go get it if you like. I still really like that guitar, actually. I'll grab it. Just one sec. No problem. There it is. So this guitar, the story behind this guitar, Cool looking, right? I swear, I think Charvel stole the idea for this guitar because they have one that looks kind of a lot like this. You know, one of the Pro Mod or whatever guitars or something has a black body like this and this colored pickguard and everything. Not that somebody else couldn't have come up with this conclusion that this would be a cool look, but you know, I never would have thought of it, to be honest. A tortoiseshell one humbucker pickguard on a black, you know, body, but I think it looks cool as hell, and with the white, you know, the 3-ply and all that. So I saw this guitar on eBay, and a guy had built it, and what it is actually, I guess, I think it, to me, I didn't realize Blackie was this beat up, but it's the wear patterns of Blackie, you know, the Clapton. That's what he says. I've never seen the back of Blackie, so I didn't realize it was this hacked up. I guess it could be. But he kind of made a Van Halen guitar that is with Clapton body aging. That's what he said. Like I said, I've never really looked at Blackie that close, the original Blackie or whatever, to see exactly how worn it is and stuff like that. But that's how he built it on eBay anyway. And it's a K&E body, I think, and a Musicraft neck, I do believe, or it could be. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but could be the other way around. Might be a K&E neck and a Musicraft body, but I don't think so. And it's one of those Frankie bodies, so it's a hard ash, but it's not super heavy. That other guitar that I have that I used in the Van Halen pickup video, you know, the white and black striped one that I had made, that guitar weighs like, it's got to be 2 pounds more than this one. It's so heavy. This one is maybe 9.5 or 9 pounds, something like that. So it's heavy, but not super heavy. Heavy for a Strat, but not super heavy. And then that other one is probably like 10 pounds. It's like the heaviest Strat I've ever picked up in my life. And I don't think the real Eddie Van Halen one is that heavy. You know what I mean? I'm not basing that on anything other than I know a few people that have played that guitar, and I don't think it was known. I feel like I would have heard if it was like unusually heavy. You know what I mean? So, and I don't think he would have played it all that time if it was unusually heavy. So anyway, bird's eye neck, pretty narrow. It's a 1 5/8, I guess, but it's not a very big neck overall. Kind of wish it was a little bigger, actually, like a little wider, a little flatter, but it's not bad. It's just a little narrow. Cool looking, I think, with the end of I love the 21 fret necks that have the kind of the telly end, but a Strat headstock, you know, kind of, you know what I mean? Like the butt of the neck kind of looks more like a telly. And I remember, like, I think maybe pre-Pro Charvel and stuff like that sometimes had that. That's my memory of it. Anyway, Floyd is an old, I think it's an old, you know, 80s, like German Floyd, I think. Is that where they were made? Regular block and all that on it, but it's a Floyd from the 80s anyway. It currently has a second degree black belt pickup, which is that what came in it? I think so. A Motor City second degree black belt. And it's got old Schaller tuners. And it's really cool. It always sounds really good. It's with this pickup, which is an Alico 5 pickup, it's a little trebly aggressive. I mean, you've heard it in videos if you've seen it, you know, maybe, and you can hear like that guitar has a sound. It's bright and snappy and fast and pretty cool. But it's maybe a little much for me these days. So I was thinking of replacing the pickup with something just a little warmer, you know? Anyways, what else is going on? If you got any specific questions, go ahead and ask. There's a super chat there. I'll grab that in just a second. John says, I have both of your guitars. They're some of the best. Thanks. You mean the signature models, the HSS and the HH? I appreciate it. I love them too, and more good stuff to come and all that. So, have you ever released your ToneX packs? No, but I got to get into that because I actually have a ToneX. So I've got a pedal board here that I think I've shown you, or did I show you? I think I showed you a picture of it at least, but it's right here right now as my new board. I'm just making a video of it. You know, writing a song and using a bunch of different sounds and stuff like that. So that'll be coming like new pedal board video next week. But the ToneX I haven't gotten into yet. When I get into that, I want to kind of configure this little. I've got a ToneX on here, is what I'm saying, on this little board. It's the little guy, you know, the little one spacer. and I want to configure it with some drive captures as well as some amp captures. It's kind of neat, this board. The way that I think I told you about it before, but the way I've configured this little pedal boards is a switcher on it, and in the last loop in the chain is the ToneX. And so I can either use it as a kind of a overdrive box that I've put captures in, so different boosts or drives or whatever I could capture in the ToneX, and then theoretically use it like a modeling drive pedal, right? But I can also just load it full on amp models in there. So if I wanted to run the whole board, for instance, let's say into an amp or something, like a power amp in a cabinet, I could do that with no cabinet sim on a ToneX capture, or I could have a direct board. I mean, essentially, you can have cabinet sims and amp sims at the same time active in there in the ToneX, and then run it right into a recording interface or to a PA. So I could just have this board. So it makes the board really versatile. So anyway, video on this board coming next week, and I am really liking it, though. It's a great little board. Yeah. My drums massively overpower my mic on my iPhone, even when playing. So my knees hurt. You can. I don't know if you if you get a one of those Shure microphones. I've actually got one. Oh, I don't think I brought it in. It's in the car. It's a iPhone mic that comes with a little. It comes a little stand, like a little tripod for your iPhone, and then there's a mic and everything, and you plug it in, and it's great for that. By the way, just an option there. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the Shure microphone for iPhone, and it's killer. Little stereo microphone, and you could record full on loud bands with it, no problem, without it overdriving. You can do video at the same time with it as well, like capture video into Shure's own video app, with the advantage being instead of using the iPhone video app with it, it's got full on level metering and stuff right on the screen as you're recording the video. So it's really nice, actually. Turns the iPhone into a very, very powerful thing, actually, I think. So good product, a little Shure microphone for iPhone. Okay. A while back, you mentioned how important the hang component of a band is. I just went in the studio with friends from a long time ago. We played for 3 to 6 hours. It was the best. That's awesome. It's fun getting together with people you haven't played with for a while. I'm doing that right now. I mean, really, with Five for Fighting. I've been touring with them for a couple of years, and I only played over the last 20 years, maybe 2 gigs with them in 20 years. So I toured with Five for Fighting in 2001 for about a year. Delicious. And then I didn't play with them for almost 20 years. And then now it's come full circle. I'm back playing with them and touring with them and stuff. And it's really fun. It's great to play with John again. And it's really good. So anyways, always, the hang and the musical relationships are interesting, like that, playing off of people, different drummers or bass players or whoever you're playing with. And Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age has a really nice moment, and it might get loud. Sorry, in Sound City, the movie that the Foo Fighters did about the studio and everything. But he has a moment where he talks about playing with people and how you can fall in love with people playing with them. As obviously not romantic, whatever, but it's a different kind of thing. It's true. Somebody's. You know what I'm talking about. It's like when somebody's playing and they're a certain feel or they're a certain groove or whatever. It's like a different side of how do you appreciate your friends on one level, talking with them and stuff about things, and you can have unique relationships with people where you communicate with them and you rely on them for certain, this is the person I go to for advice on this, or that I can always count on, to listen to my problems or whatever, that kind of thing. Those sorts of back and forth, or just great cracking jokes and dynamic conversation. And I love the idea that you can have that with musicians in a musical way. I think that's such a neat concept, that people have a unique thing and you might not play music with them for 10 or 15 years. You get back together and there's that thing, and it's the same kind of conversational you know, or it could be a bad thing, just like with people where, you know, you never really gel with them and it's always a struggle and you feel like, why am I, is it me, you know? And it's like, I've had that relationship with people musically too, where it's like, why can I never feel quite where this is going to land when I play with this person? Like the time, you know, the drummers, big time. I mean, where it's like, you feel like you're fighting or always kind of trying to make it feel good. And then other ones where it's like, I can't do anything wrong. It feels so good. Like, it's like everything's locked in. So I find that fascinating, you know, really fascinating, and what different people bring to the musical conversation. Okay. What else? What else are we talking about here? There's that super chat. I'm gonna grab that. I have a chance to get a pair of 77 blackbacks. Do you have a preference for 25 or 30? Chiquita. It was Chiquita. Yeah, made by Irwin. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, for the yeah, that was the little travel guitar. If you've never seen those, they're so cool, I think. Little ripping little, you know, they got a humbucker in them, and I kind of want one actually now that I think about it. I wonder if there's any on like Reverb. I'm gonna take a look for a second, just really quick here. Reverb.com. Reverb.com. Let's see if there's any Chiquita travel guitars. Travel guitar. Just curious. 6 results. Yeah, there's one. It's a 92. I didn't know they made them that late. There's another one. You know, yeah, they're cool looking. This one's got like a maple top on it, and it's a through. I didn't realize it's a through body neck. That kind of makes sense. The neck is one. I think it's through body, and then it's got the 2 little wings glued on. Anyways, if anybody wants to check this out, just look for Chiquita travel guitar on Reverb. I think are they full scale length? Maybe not. And they've got one of those Schaller bridges. This one's got a Schaller bridge on it. That's like a one of those adjustable stop tail Schallers. I wonder. I had that bridge on a guitar, and I sometimes wonder why nobody uses those anymore. Maybe they weren't good. I'm just taking a picture here so I can show you guys the. That's what it. Sorry, it's so overexposed. I don't know how to. That light, I can't. Anyway, you're not going to be able to. I don't know why the light is so crazy. Maybe if I turn the screen way down. Okay, come back. There we go. Now you can see it. Yeah. That was the Chiquita. And they came in, you know, kind of like cool metallic colors and stuff is my memory of it. They're kind of cool with the single speed knob on it and stuff, just the volume knob. It's a little Gumby looking, but a lot of fun. You could definitely throw it in a suitcase. Anybody here compare big box Memory Man with smaller ones? You know, I'm not like a Memory Man expert, but I do have an old big box one. One thing about it had a cable, and I would always get a ground loop when I used it, so I had to lift it. Remember that about it. I still have it here. It's in the back somewhere. And the other thing about the Memory Mans was the at least the one that I had, which probably wasn't a super old one. Maybe it was made in the 90s or something. It would run out of headroom really quickly, and I didn't like the distortion character, like that. It would like, so, you know, you just turning up that output control and trying to get to unity gain. When I had the pedal on, I would hear this clipping all the time with it. And I'm like, I think that's like substandard analog chip and pedal design. When I hear that, I don't like that about it. So that was something I didn't bond with. Maybe I always wondered if that was common on the old ones too, or maybe the old analog chips, because I think the old analog chips did have more headroom than a lot of I had a boutique chorus, I remember, in the 90s. That was an analog chorus. It sounded really good, and I was like, why when I turn it on am I getting more distortion though? And it's always like the chips running out of headroom. I think, you know, it's something that Kevin Sir tackled with the Sir Discovery. Maybe he doesn't get enough credit for. That does not do that, and it's such a great analog delay with super long delay time. I think like that pedal doesn't get enough credit. The Sir Discovery delay, it's incredible. It's really expensive, but it's there's a reason it doesn't distort. You know, it's got like he really engineered it so that there was a ton of headroom in it. So it's very pure sounding for an analog delay, which I think is cool. You know, I don't want distortion from my delay necessarily. And And just the programmability and long delay times you can get with it and stuff are so cool, as well as the modulation and just the way it oscillates. It's amazing sounding. Now, okay, so having said all that, I do have a smaller memory man. Can't remember which one it is, but it's one of those newer, it's not the super like small Electro-Harmonix one, but it's maybe yay big. And I think maybe I like it better than my old big box one with the cable that I had to ground lift and all that stuff, But I can't comment. I think I'm only guessing, but I'm guessing the ones like the earliest ones, there was probably a better chip, because I don't know that distortion quality I was hearing is super common with them. Anybody else know what I'm talking about with this? Certain analog effects that don't have a hell of a lot of headroom. 212 for SL68, Greenback 75 is too fizzy, Greenback 25 is on low power. Yeah, a plexi can usually benefit from a greenback. I think I sort of like what greenbacks do for them. So in my mind, actually, you try it with the 75s. Too fizzy, not necessarily. I mean, I love 75, and a plexi into a G12H30 is also great sound. Quite honestly, I don't know that I've ever plugged my SL68 into two Creamback 75s. I have a cab. That's my 212s for my PT100. So I have two of those in the other room. I have two. I should try it, and then I could give you an honest assessment. I've heard plexis through G12H30s, and 412s loaded old ones and stuff. But I kind of think that the combination of an M magnet, the smaller magnet, more mid-rangey sort of speaker with a plexi is a cool thing, just because of what you say, the fizz factor. So I think it would probably sound pretty good into the right cabinet with Greenback 75s. Would it be better with two Greenbacks? Maybe. Now, which Greenbacks though, because of the power handling? So I would probably try and seek out some higher power, either the Greenback M's. A 212 with Greenback M's I've sort of come around is pretty damn good. That's what's in that. There's a Marshall cabinet back there, and that was the cabinet that's a vertical one that kind of turned me around on that, because that cabinet sounds really quite good, I think. I've used it in a few videos. The one for that little Marshall JTM 20 was one of them that I did with it. So maybe seek out Scumbag or a higher power Greenback alternative as well. I'm a Greenback at the end of the day. With plexis, I like Greenbacks. I mean, and by that I mean M magnet 25 watts, or maybe the 65 watt Scumbag variant or something like that. Two of those. And generally speaking, if you run the amp on the 90 volt setting, the low power setting, you don't have as much to worry about anyway. So I would say 265 watt speakers and on the lower volt setting, you're just fine, because at that point the amp's probably only making 60 watts or something on the low voltage setting, maybe a little more, and so you're well within the realm of safety there, I would say, if you get the higher power Greenback versions. But I'll have to plug in my SL68 into a 212 with Greenback 75, see how it sounds. See what I think. Maybe it's great. Let's see. Here's a question. Looking for a modeler profiler currently to go with a Fender FR12. Is that a full range Fender? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, all those are very capable. The quad has been my current live main squeeze. I use that with Five for Fighting. I bond with the Quad Cortex just personally on a ease of use level. I find it really they sound terrific. It's so easy to make them sound good right out of the box. It is with most. I mean, sure, Axe-Fx Helix, you can get great sounds easily if you just load up a familiar amp model and a good cab, and away you go. These things are pretty easy to use these days, and it's come so far. But I find it, in particular, the Quad Cortex. I mean, you want a great high gain crunchy sound, just pull up the BE model from Friedman and put the 90s Greenback cabinet on it. And as soon as you pull them up, just with the way they load up, that sounds great. 2 blocks and boom, boom, and just, oh yeah, sounds good. Totally cool. So, it's just easy to use, and then pretty unlimited as far as like, the captures and loading up. It's a modeler, but with all the captures and everything too. So it's kind of cool. Most are one or the other. Axvex a modeler, Helix is a modeler, the ToneX is a capture device. Quad Cortex is both. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay. Rob says, love the show. Always learn lots from your knowledge. What makes some guitars magical? Thanks, man. First of all, appreciate that. So a repair tech told you that your 335 isn't one of the magical ones. That's kind of a mean thing to tell somebody, I guess. Different guitars, one man's, dark is another man's warm, or one man's, bright and edgy is another man's clarity. You know what I mean? So it's like whatever speaks to you, and there's so many factors, with playability and tone. For me, it's when it all kind of coalesces into an instrument. My 335, at least on the bridge pickup, is really special. I think it just has a tone that is undeniably that guitar, and it speaks through the pickup and just sounds amazing. Now on the neck pickup, I'm not as crazy about it. It's interesting. I don't know if it's just that special pickup or what, but it certainly sounds great. The middle position is pretty cool too. Yeah. So, what else about that? It's got to be the whole package. Like if it plays great, you put it in your hands, it feels familiar. My Urine Les Paul is like that. Like it every time I pick it up, I'm like, why don't I play this more? I pick it up and it's just, oh yeah, this guitar, and it's super comfy and it's everything I want a Les Paul to be, sort of. And that just, it's like, there it is. And I don't want for anything, it's got some little quirks, a couple little things, but my Sir, this one, the Sparkle Black Jobby, this just really delivers in a way that I love. It's just like a high octane rock and roll machine that stays it's just solid, and it's hot and just sounds great. So I think that works. Ever since I had the nut replaced, I used this in a video this week. Ever since I had the nut replaced on this black Les Paul Custom in Japan a number of years ago, look how sexy it is too. It's a good looking guitar. So nice, right? This is just a run of the mill US Les Paul Custom from about 2000, and this friggin' guitar, this was my main guitar with Chris Cornell. And for years it had a nut that, after there was it had a headstock break that happened at a Cornell rehearsal, so it's got a repair in it. It had a big long crack all the way through the headstock. But my friend fixed it. But when he did the nut was like always a little tweaky, and it would go out of tune a lot. It was really annoying. So when I was in Japan a number of years ago, and I was there all summer for a big Kiyoshi Nagabuchi gig we were rehearsing for, the guitar, I really wanted to play it on the show, and it was driving me crazy because I couldn't seem to keep it in tune. So I went to a place called Huchi's in Shibuya, and they had a luthier there. It was right around the corner from my hotel, so I could like walk over there with the guitar and a gig bag. And I took it to Huchi's, and in a day, their tech cut this nut for it that's been on there ever since, and it is just exceptional. Like I explained to him the problem, and in true Japanese fashion, with pride and excellence, this guy made this nut, and it is perfect. I mean, and the guitar just stays in tune now, and it's I can't stress enough on a Les Paul, if you've got tuning issues, to explore having the nut done by somebody really good, and just, this is where most of the tuning problems originate from. And if it's cut just right, with the right break angle and everything, and the way that the height and the whole 9 yards, you can transform a guitar from being a problem into something really cool. So anyway, that guitar, I've had different pickups in it over the years. It's got Thornbuckers in it now, and I think it sounds terrific the way that it is. So I probably won't change it again, but I mean, because it's kind of fun to mess with. I've had hotter pickups in it at times, and it's got, no matter what, it's got a big, deep sound that is coming from the guitar. Like, you know, I'm team Tonewood all the way. You know, that guitar has a unique sound that there's a depth to it that it always has through different pickup changes, and it just sounds great for rock. It's really got this meaty, cool, deep. You know, it's almost like where the bass on it isn't woolly. It's not subby necessarily, but it's got this weight to it that it always sounds like. It's like the weight of the guitar gets transferred through the pickups, no matter what kind of pickups they are in it. And it's not even a heavy guitar. I just mean the tonal weight. It's not light, I wouldn't say, but it's not heavy either. So, anyways, I find it interesting, and that guitar always sounds like that guitar. And it's a great one. You know, I kind of like when I think about it, and I'm going to cut a track. It's like, ooh, the Black Les Paul would be good on this. You know, and I get kind of excited about it still. So, anyways, DSH from Sir. What are my thoughts on that? That is a double screw hot, I do believe. Humbucker. So it's probably like an SSH, like I don't know. I think that's about a 12K pickup or something like that. DSH, they're known for being warmer because there's a double row of screws, and for whatever reason, the slugs or the screws, if you do have a double row of screws, the pickup can sound warmer. I don't know why, but that's or a little like sweeter on the top end. I think that's what Alan Holdsworth liked, was a double row of screws, and it's maybe a little more fluid or something, you know, or a little less edge and a little more round on the notes, I think. So if you're looking for kind of like a fusiony thing, it can be really good, you know, I think. Seymour Duncan Class D power amps are great with ToneX. You know, I have a lot of you know, Duncan. They've been one of the only players that has one, like a cool little power amp that's so useful, and it's really smart. And I think more people should realize that they need to come out with more power amps these days. You know, be it Fender or Marshall or whoever they are. I mean, everybody that's making modelers, or everybody that's making, you know, something that your pedals, you know, that you can preamp pedals and things. There's uses for these little power amps, you know, you know, powering a full range monitor, or powering a guitar cabinet from your modeler or whatever, you know, there's all kinds of uses. So Duncan has been one of the only players. So thank God they're around, because I've got two of them that I've been taking on tour. Two of the little power stage, right? And I use them with the Quad Cortex when I can't bring my Matrix, which is it's a big 2-spacer in a rack, you know. So if I'm flying somewhere, I throw a couple of those Duncans in the bottom of a Pelican with my Quad Cortex pedal board and some cables, and I'm good to go, you know. I ran a cabinet on the other end. Yeah. So I agree, they're good. Do I think there's room for improvement and stuff like? Yeah, I'd like to see some other. I'll give you an example. Black Star, for example, on their amped pedals, you know, those are amps that you can plug in that have preamps and everything built in. I think they should just make a power amp version of a stereo power amp version of their amped pedal. Free advice, Black Star, because their little power amp sounds great. It's basically a Class D, but you can turn this knob that allows you to select different power tube type voicings. So it's kind of like modeled power tube, you know, curves or whatever, and it sounds great. Like the tonal variations you can get out of that, I think really, really good sounding power amp in those amped pedals. So I wish they would just make a little stereo version of it where you can select the tube type and stuff like that, and you know, very few controls, you know, maybe just like a depth and a presence or something, and then the power tube voicing thing and a volume. That's it. Oops, sorry, I hit the mic. I discovered this week with my microphone, and I never noticed this before, but people were talking about noise as it was relating to when I was playing guitar a couple weeks ago on the show. People were talking about a buzz or something, and I'm wondering if it was this. Actually, I discovered the cable in this mic stand, because this is like a I don't know what you call it, but you know, it clips on my desk and then has a long arm that comes off it for this SM7 mic. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the cable. The cable right here. It's dangling right here. You can't see it on the screen, but the arm is from Gator, I think. And anyway, there was a ground buzz coming right out of the microphone, and I don't know how long I've been doing the show and that's been there, or if it's just really not that noticeable to some people with echo cancellation or whatever. I'm not really sure, but anyways, I replaced I was gaining up the mic the other day and listening to it. There's a ground buzz going on. Where the hell is that coming from? And I was like, is it my preamp? Is it my... So I was eliminating everything. The last thing was like, well, I don't know. I haven't tried changing the cable that's included with the stand to go from here to my cloud lifter, the microphone to the cloud lifter, and then into a pre over there. I changed the cable and the buzz went away. It's like, oh, it's always something, man. Technical crap. What the hell? Okay. What else? What else we talking about here in the chat? I'm probably pretty far behind. Can you talk about how you're currently using Unit 67 into one of your signature amps? Sure. Unit 67 is a great boost pedal. It's a very unique pedal. It's a boost compressor that can act as a clean boost, as a compressor, or as both, and also have some color to it. EQ, it's got a bass and a treble, but it's also got a range master style mid treble kind of boost sound in it. And so it can be a combination of all those things. So I use it with just a little compression. I use it with a fair amount of clean boost. And then I have the range master turned up about 3/4 of the way up, that tone. And then I have the bass cut just a little, and I think the treble's flat in the middle. That's how I use it. And I kick it on. It's so basically a colored boost at that point. I just love it. It's got a character to it. I like boosts with some color. I don't really like straight up clean boost for just about anything. I like a boost that's got a little bit more targeted through the mids or upper mids, so that the guitar pokes in a certain frequency, not all frequencies. If you're boosting bass, all the way down, it generally just muddies up the front end. Sometimes it's the right thing to do. There's like a fruit fly in here or something. Anyways, so the Unit 67 really fits the bill because it's got such a cool color, and you can add a little bit of that range master thing, a little compression. You turn it on, it's just juicy all of a sudden. It's like really cool the way you can voice it, Moving through the chat. What is the bias set for the EL34 and the PT100? We set them around 32 usually, something like that. You're good. I've been told you're kind of good anywhere up to 40, but I wouldn't go that hot. I don't think. I think 32 is how we do it. 32 milliamps with a nice match set of tubes. Last tour was the first time I actually started biasing myself. I had a tube failure, and I had to replace some tubes. And it was interesting because I didn't actually have... I don't know what happened. Oh, I know what happened. At SIR, what I usually do when I go on tours, I'll have the amps gone through before tour, and then match set of tubes, and then they'll usually give me another match set. So that means you need 8 matched, right? In order to, because then I won't have to rebias. If I have a tube failure on the road, I can just pull the set that's in the amp, pop in the other 4, and I'm covered, right? Well, one of my amps had 4 matched tubes in it, and then they tried to find another matched quartet, and they couldn't. They could only find 3 that would. This was when I was on the road last year, one of my PT100s. So they found 3 that matched up, and I was like, well, if I have a failure, it'll probably just be 1 tube, So I'll take the 3, and then I'll figure out which is the bad tube, and then I should be able to just pop it in. So anyway, that's what ended up happening. That amp, after a few months of gigging, had a tube failure, and so I had to go in and check, which tube is. He kept popping the HT fuse, which is the tube fuse, kind of for the power tubes only. So the amp would still power up, but there was no sound. So I was like, okay, popped an HT fuse. That means bad power tube, probably. If you pop the mains fuse, it can be other things, but HT fuse is generally the power tube. So anyway, so then I was able to get in with a meter and go through, and I thought, process of elimination, I'll pull 2 tubes. So in a PT100 or a Marshall, you can pull the outside pair or the inside pair of tubes and just run it on half power, on 50 watts, basically, with 2 tubes running. You just have to change the impedance jack. So if you normally use a 16, you go to the 8 when you do that. And so anyway, I did that. I thought, well, it's going to be a 50-50 chance. I'm going to figure, because the amp kept popping HT fuses every time I would replace the fuse and turn it on. So I thought, all right, let's pull. I think I did the outer pair first, pulled those, turned on the amp, new HT fuse, didn't blow any more HTs. So that means that, okay, I must have pulled the bad tube, and then I just replaced with 2 out of the 3 from the other, from the matched ones that I had, and was able to go through and then rebias and stuff like that, because it did need a little rebiasing actually anyway, but I know how to do that now, so stoked. All right, that's enough on that. Boring. Tube bias, but kind of interesting. I was proud of myself that I'm able to get in there and do that, actually, not kill myself with this hanging into the amp and electrocute myself or anything. Okay, what else you guys talking about? Let's see. Try an old Electro-Harmonix Memory Man 1100 TT, most typically available in Japan. That's interesting. What's that one sound like? When were they made? Tell us more, Memory Man experts. Yeah. I had the tubes replaced in the PT100, and he reports the old tubes were set at 49. They should need to be at 29. I don't know what all that means exactly, but yeah, if you're talking about 49 milliamps, that's too hot. Running on the hairy edge there, I would say. Yeah. Okay. Looking through the comments, questions. Thanks for all being here, by the way. Thanks for joining me. Oh yeah, somebody pointed out that in the thumbnail, I forgot to reverse the picture. The picture looks so cool that I chose for my thumbnail this week that I just loved it. That I forgot that it's backwards. That happens to me sometimes when I take pictures with the, anyway, the guitar is looks lefty in the picture. Cool looking though, right? So what if I was a lefty? Elliot Easton. That guitar, by the way, was a friend's. That's Friedman's V that he just got. Okay. Todd Roy says a superbly cut nut is important. You don't want a sitar sound either. Definitely not. Yeah, no, the nut is one of the most important things. I find the height, a nut that is a little too high to me can throw off the whole feel of a guitar. Can just feel like the action's never right. It also can screw with the tuning. When it's too high and then you say the third fret on the low E, it always ends up being sharp. Hate that. Or the F, when the low E's in tune, when you play it open, the 6th string, then you play an F and it's always sharp, often that's a high nut. Bad feel, bad tuning, the whole 9 yards, but you can't go too low or it starts buzzing, so it's really a fine line. I think it's an art. Yeah. This is interesting. I remember these. I have a 90s PV Ultra Tube 212 that I bought new. It was immediately before PV started working at the EVH. Was wondering if you have any thoughts. I remember them because I worked in a store that sold those. I don't think the PV amps of that era were too bad, especially that one, it was a tube 2 or 3 channel combo, right? I remember it. Would be a great big heavy thing. I kind of have a fond memory of those amps because even though people rag on them and stuff like that, the renown, that was a solid state 212. I just remember them fondly, sort of just because they were part of my guitar youth growing up, and it was something that I could sort of see in my local stores, and they looked to me kind of cool at the time, even though they had that crazy PV logo and everything. And I was, be like, well, that would be the next step up for me if I could afford one of those. Wouldn't that be cool? I could get, and then I never did that. I went with Marshall, thank God, I guess. But even my Marshall was solid state. I had a MOSFET Lead 100, which was basically a solid state, MOSFET JCM 800. But that amp sounded pretty good, actually. It was more than enough for me at the time. It was a good amp for the stage of player I was at, or whatever at that point, I think. So, but anyway, the Ultras. What do I think about them? Well, I think that those amps of that generation were, the PVs were, they're okay. They were like gigging, decent. We might listen to them now and go, God, it's awful. But we might listen to it and go, it's not that bad. I'm just not sure. My memory of them is, if I had to describe anything, is that maybe the tone was competent but generic. like the distortion of the Rockmaster preamp, for instance, the PV of the time, or those Ultra, which was probably the same front end. It's probably I bet the Rockmaster was the preamp out of the Ultra, but or close anyway. But kind of just competent but generic, but not terrible, like unworkable. If you can set it just right and you can get a decent sound. Whatever they probably, whatever became the JSX amp for Satriani was probably derived from that, and then tweaked a little bit or something. It's probably not that different. Once James Brown was doing things, the 5150 classic amps, obviously the classics were, they made a few moves around then. Obviously the Eddie Van Halen one was huge. That's the original block logo 5150 is a metal classic, always will be, kind of, I guess. And they sounded cool. I had one. And the classic 50, 410 in particular, I would say, and the classic 20, the original little classic 20, exceptional sounding little amp, really. So they made some cool stuff, kind of in a sea of stuff that was, the backstage or the Rage 15s, all those. But they did make some really cool stuff too. So that guitar and rig you had at the Cornell tribute show, which one? I don't remember which one you the Cornell tribute show. I played acoustic because I played with Miley Cyrus and but I didn't play electric at that show, so I'm not sure which one you mean. Maybe you're talking about like some time when I jammed, maybe with Paulie Z when we got together and played some Cornell songs. Maybe that's what you mean. If that's what you're talking about, there's a show on the internet where I played a bunch of, we did a Chris Cornell set with my buddy Toshi, great guitar player, and myself on guitars, and this pretty great singer named Paulie Z. And if that's what you mean, that's just a PT100 with all the effects and stuff coming from the Quad Cortex. It's the only time I've used it like that, but it worked really well using the Quad Cortex 4 cable with the PT100. So for effects in front as well as in the loop. So rotary and all that stuff is all coming out of the Quad with the amp, the PT for all the amp tones. What else? My Malcolm Young Gretsch has a fret sitting right behind the nut. Why, I don't know. That's called a 0 fret. And some guitars used to have that, some acoustics. Pretty rare that you see it on electrics, but yeah, some Gretches. And I guess the thinking with the 0 fret was that, well, now the nut's not as important, is it? The 0 fret becomes the break point at the end of the neck. Maybe it's a little easier for truer intonation stuff, and maybe that also becomes obviously a tone transfer into the neck. It's a fret. I don't know. It's just like a different way to go at terminating the end of the neck, rather than a nut. It of course gives you another friction point. So for anything with a tremolo or something, it wouldn't be something you would want. But on a guitar with a Gretsch Malcolm Young, like with heavy strings and kind of, it's a rhythm guitar, it's could be really cool. I've never heard or seen an experiment done, of the same guitar with a 0 fret or with a nut replaced, or what it does to the tone or what it does to the tuning. But one would think that a metal fret is probably a little more, less susceptible to wear and to uneven slots and all the things that a nut is, right? So I don't know, I guess that would be the argument for a 0 fret. You'd have to ask a really good, builder or luthier what they think of them. I think on a certain guitar, like the Gretsch Malcolm Young, totally makes sense, and totally works. On anything with a tremolo or where you're doing a lot of bending or something, maybe not so much, but because you're also going to have the friction of the nut behind it. You still got to have a nut. So now you got 2 friction points, and that can be bad for tuning if you're doing a lot of this, if the string's moving over that stuff a lot, Speaking of Cornell tribute, in the studio podcast with Redbeard put together a great compilation of archived interviews with Chris for his birthday. Yeah, it was Chris's 60th yesterday. That's cool. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, he was a good interview. I mean, he was always a fascinating guy to talk to about anything. So if the interviewer was good and if the questions were good, if he got talking, he could, you know, it was always pretty interesting. So there's some podcasts and stuff with him that I thought were really great that I enjoyed listening to. And I did a lot of, I mean, I spent a lot of time with him on morning radio where we would go do some of my favorite times actually, you'd get up early and, oh God, it's so early. It's 6 a.m. and you'd have a show that night, but I'd be getting up to go play a morning radio show with Chris Cornell, just him and me on acoustic guitars. Imagine, right? And I got to do that on a routine basis. For Sirius or for local radio or different, and the times in the car, just hanging out, talking on the way to the station, or sometimes when we'd stop and get food and have meals and stuff, it was special to me. It was fun. We got, and it was a different experience than playing in the band with him, the full band, when you got to go do just him and me in a room usually. Sometimes other people around, but often they'd stick us in a little room. Radio stations have a little studio or whatever, a little closed room with a couple chairs and some microphones and headphones and everything set up. And then you'd go in there and play, and then maybe you'd go in the studio for the interview or different things. But just to sit there with him at about 7 a.m. sometimes and play like a stone or something was some of my fondest memories of, really special. And some of them are on websites for the radio stations or were aired in some way, or so I can go back and watch some of them. I'm like, it's cool memory, some of those things. And anyway, I was going to say, and then often they would interview him, ask him questions and stuff. So I would just get to sit there and listen to the interview, and it was always enjoyable. So, yep, good memories. Okay. A tube power amp would convince a lot of tube guys to try a modeler. Well, there's nothing stopping. A lot of people use the guitarist in the Deftones, for example, uses Fryette power amps and 412 cabinets, but he's a Helix guy, so he's running his Helix into with amp sims into a tube power, and it sounds great. I actually got to play his rig once or hear it at a rehearsal and play a little bit, and it's amazing sounding. Actually, really cool. I mean, you just take the cab sim off and then you use the axe as a Helix or whatever you've got as a preamp. Deftones. I said the Deftones. Offspring. Excuse me. Offspring doing the same thing. Yeah, amps and axe effects. They use axe effects into guitar cabinets. Yeah, pretty cool. Can be good, Blackstar does make an all-in-one with a power amp. No, I know they make an all-in-one with a power amp, but I'm just saying it would be cool if they just made a stereo power amp version with no preamp sims. Just a tweakable stereo power amp about the size of their amped one without any preamp stuff, just power. Yeah. ISP, yeah, they're another one. It has the 180 watt stereo power amp, class AB. Sounds real good. I would like to try that sometime. Yeah. Timber Duncan already has the Power Stage 100 stereo. Yeah, and I love the Duncans. And I have two mono ones and use those. It would be easier if I just had I got this gnat flying around in here. It's driving me crazy in front of the screen. I'll get it. But the thing about the Duncan is that so the Blackstar has this voicing thing that makes it sound a lot more like a tube power amp. Give it some color, and a little less of that Class D. The Class D thing is can be a little hard sounding, a little flat sounding, a little hard, which might be just what you want if you're, the argument would be if you're using a modeler that's already got some power amp simulation built in and stuff, maybe you just want to, but you might want a little juice, a little tube stuff and that's once again coming back to the Deftones and stuff like that, and using tube power amps. Those power amps definitely have a little bit of a sound that they're contributing to the whole thing. And it does take on whether or not it's exactly what is going in via your modeler. Let's say you're running a Marshall 2203 model or whatever into a flat super flat power amp, and compare that with a tube power amp. That the thing the tube amp can offer can be pretty cool. So the Black Star is allows you to do that, add a little bit of that tube color and stuff like that. And I like that, the different voicings. How was the Cardinal Black gig? So that's Chris Buck's band. I saw at the Troubadour the other night. It was great, man. Boy, the singer's amazing. He sounded terrific. And Chris is such a sweet guy, and they killed it, I thought it was really good. They sold it out too. So, they've only played a few dates in the US. The first time over here, I believe they sold out a 600 cap room in Nashville, and then they came to LA. They were really all over the place as far as like, wow, you guys got 3 gigs and they're vast distances apart. But anyways, they played the Troubadour the other night, and it was a really, really good sold out crowd show, just excellent. So, yeah. So you guys are talking about the noise with my mic cable. Yeah, I heard a little noise sometimes. Buzz has gone. The long arm of the mic. Yeah, for some reason, I guess this cable had a busted ground in it. I just never really heard it. But now it's fixed, so whatever. It's a cool little workaround. Unfortunately, I won't be able to use the mic cable that's included with my mic stand, but it's just added an extra one. It's fine. All good. Somebody else was talking about the Black Star amp is really a copy of the Blue Guitar. Yeah, I know Thomas, and I know he's got that. It's not really a copy of. Maybe the power amp is similar. Thomas made that claim, and I know Thomas. I'm friends with Thomas and stuff, but I think it's a kind of a relatively commonly known sort of. It's not like a. It'd be a little like. Like how do you? Like unless you're Randall Smith and you're simulclass and you've got a patent on everything, if there's a design for a power amp, it's kind of out there, and it's like, well, then we could say, okay, a Serb Ombre is, yes, basically a brown face Princeton or Deluxe or whatever it is, copy of a Deluxe, or a Friedman small box is basically a copy of a, yes, we all know that. It's kind of like, that's these little designs of amplifiers and things like that. There's not like, unless it's Guytron or, certain Mesa things, there's not like a patent on these things, generally speaking. So people go and they run with it and they build. But to me, I never really got the argument with the Blue Guitar one, because the Blue Guitar does so many other things. It's a 4-channel preamp with it. That's just the power amp that's built into the thing, that design. But everything else about the amp is, the amp 1, amp 2, it's a 2-channel or 1-channel. It doesn't have 4 channels, and it's not nearly as sort of, I don't know, the Blue Guitar is just, the front end is way more complex and stuff like that. So it's its own thing, I think. And I wouldn't, if you're going to go after people for, not saying he does. I understand Thomas's point. He's like, well, they kind of took my thing, pedal board amp or whatever, but that's bound to happen. Like everybody's kind of going for this now, like small, right? I don't know. It's like, yeah, anyways. Okay. Just my 2 cents. When playing fast 15, 17, 19, do you fret the 19th with the pinkier ring finger? So I'm way up high on the neck. I'm going to do it with my 3rd finger, generally speaking, unless I'm doing something that needs the, you know what I mean? Yeah, I see what you mean with the 3-fret spread. Well, let me think about that for a minute. So 3rd finger, probably 90% of the time. I might use my pinky for certain. I'll tend to use my pinky for this stretch more. Say the 12th fret, the 15th fret, and then the 17th fret. So I'll use my, maybe my pinky for different things if I'm way up high, but I'll tend to go to the next, if it's a box position or whatever. You want to hit the higher note above the one that you're in. If we're talking about kind of modes or blues boxes or whatever. If it's a 3 note per string thing and I'm that high and the strings are that close together, I'm on the 3rd finger, generally speaking, I think. I'm one of the guys that sometimes I get criticism for that in my YouTube comments, like, why don't you ever use your pinky? I do. It's just I use it for the big stretch, further than that. So Yeah. Okay. We got 270 people here. Nice to have you all here. Only 14 likes. That's not enough. Everybody hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. If I can convince you to do that, it'd be very helpful. Helps spread the videos far and wide. What did I do this week? Oh yeah, I did a video for the Jam Pedals Rattler. I really enjoyed actually making the video, and I enjoyed in retrospect the tone with the mid boost on that I was able to get through my Sir, basically plexi, right? And with the amp set crunchy, and then kind of turning it into a little 3-channel monster really with this thing. Kind of cool, and I get it now. The gain low, rat thing, the Nuno thing in front of a Marshall. I get it. It's cool. I might have used a little more gain than he does, maybe, on the pedal, but it's a fine line because it'll get sloppy real quick. It'll get too, hard clip distortion pedals into clipping Marshalls can be a really not nice sound to me. So, but this one really good, and it's a great version of the Rat pedal, I think. So nicely kind of augmented with that new mid boost that's in it and stuff. If you haven't heard the video, give it a listen. Tell me what you think in the comments and stuff. Would you do a video on the third power Satriani amp? I would actually. I would be happy to do that if they contacted me. They'd have to get in touch with me and put it out there and stuff. They got him out there doing it, so they don't need me, do they? But anyway, I'd be happy to do it if they wanted me to. Yeah, I'd like to try it and see what it sounds like in person. Cali 76, Compact Deluxe versus Fat versus Ego 76. What's the Ego 76? Are these all different? What's the Ego 76? I got to get on the, I'm not, wait a second here. Ego 76 compressor. Who makes that? Oh, it's a Wampler. Okay. Haven't tried that one. So can't really comment. Don't know what it sounds like. I will say that to me, the Origin are quite exceptional. They've sort of built their reputation on that, and right from the get-go, from the first compressor product, it was excellent. The big box one, like really cool. But the new one's amazing. It sounds great. I'm all over the map with compressors, man. I'll tell you what I'm using right now on this little board. This guy, that little compressor from Keeley. So it's a little baby 2-knobber, really tiny, and it's just got a level and a compression. Simple. You can kind of put both the knobs on about 5, and it's like, yep, that sounds good. Sometimes I like that. A lot of switches and stuff in compressors and attack and release settings and stuff. And blah, I get like, oh, I should have put this. I can kind of, I don't know. It might sound better for this part to have it. It's nice in a pedal compressor sometimes to just have the 2 knobs, a la Dynacomp. I don't know if this sounds like a Dynacomp. The Keeley, to me, it sounds like a good. It's just a good. Keeley's known for their compressors, so I still owe Keeley a video, if not 2. And I apologize, Keeley. I got to get on that. I'll have stuff coming your way. I promise. I have a 2555 signatures has a lot of dust inside. Can you advise on how to clean it? I think a lot of people would probably try compressed air first, just a can and spray it out. It's just air. Get those at the hardware store. See if that kind of gets you there. Beyond that, I would ask Friedman on Tone Talk what he would use. I mean, contact cleaner, like a good deoxit or something in the jacks and stuff, can be good. You want to think about tube sockets and stuff like that though too, and so maybe it's a better question for him to ask, as if it gets into like, oh, I got to get in there and actually start wiping stuff. And but try compressed air at least to start, because that could take away a lot of crap and dust and everything that can build up in there. Yeah, that I can say. You don't need to worry about it hurting anything. Will the PT50 look like the PT15 or PT100? It'll look like something new, but more like the 15, in keeping with that, because that's the direction we've been moving in. And that tubes up, Marshall style, amp controls on the bottom of the head sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Have you ever been caught in a downpour? on one of your outside gigs. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it can range anywhere from, the gig gets canceled, which has happened a couple times, or postponed, pushed back an hour. I remember flying out to do a Mark Martel, the One Vision of Queen, or whatever he calls it now, a whole set of Queen music with him. And we were in West Virginia, and the whole gig got pushed back like 45 minutes, but we still went out and did the show, and we only cut a tune or two. But it was, for a minute, it can be touch and go. Like, is it going to happen? Because, there's other factors like lightning and things, and each, if you got people gathered, different cities and stuff, they've got their own states, they've got their own laws when it comes to stuff like that. So even if there's a threat of a storm and it hasn't started raining many times, they got to postpone, just in case a fast moving storm comes through and can, be bad. So let me think. I've played some shows where it's been full on raining, but the stage is fairly well covered and protected, and so we play, and then the crowd gets wet. I've festivals. I remember one in Norway with Chris Cornell like that. Many times you're moving your pedalboard back from the edge, or maybe putting some plastic over it and just exposing only your switcher or something. Man, when we did our Fuji gig, the big I mentioned it earlier, the big Tyoshi Nagabuchi gig in 2015 at Mount Fuji. There's 100,000 people there. It was a crazy all-night show that we did. It rained every day leading up to it. And he didn't want any kind of overhang on the stage because he wanted to look up and be able to see the stars and stuff like that, I guess. So we were totally exposed. So if it was going to rain, I don't know what we were going to do. To be honest, I don't know how it would have gone. But it was raining every day leading up to that show. Day of the show, might have rained earlier in the morning, then cleared up like by the afternoon. By the time we went on stage, it was beautiful. Played all night, no rain. The morning, the sun came up. It was Fuji behind us, and it was amazing. Beautiful sun. We've got amazing photos. I got a photo on my wall right there of it, actually. I'll show you what it looked like. Because it's just the phenomenal part being the weather. Here's the way that it looked. I don't know if you can see that, but in the morning you can see the sun coming up, and then you can see the big stage, and then you can see Fuji in the background, right? Incredible, like the sun streaming through, and the stage was literally built to look like Mount Fuji, right? So you can see it kind of there, and the mountain off to the right or whatever. It was crazy. I mean, it was just beautiful. And then later that afternoon, rain again. So we got one day of nothing. It was incredible. It was like meant to be, and then it just started raining again the next day. So we would have been screwed. I don't know. Sometimes things like that happen, I guess. Yeah. I worked out a trade for the Rocket Roll. Curious, did you like playing it? I thought it was a good one. Yeah. Are you the fellow that got the guitar to Dave? Really cool, I think. Very, very, very similar neck to my Destroyer, which is back there. You can see it right behind me. That wide, thin thing. They seem to be pretty darn consistent, those guitars, like the ones I've played, because Alistrada has a V and a Destroyer. So I've played a number of them now. And the neck shapes and stuff are relatively consistent. They seem like they were doing really good, really good work back then, making those. Okay. Nathaniel says, I had a brutal sound check the other week. Headliner totally stomped all over our sound check. What do you do to get the most out of your sound checks? Have you ever had a bad? The headliner, I'll tell you this, dude. I mean, playing with Chris Cornell, he's Chris Cornell, right? And we went to play with 3-week tour with Lenny Kravitz in France. And we didn't get a sound check until 2 weeks into that. Maybe I shouldn't. I like Lenny. Lenny's really cool. I met him. He was very nice to us and stuff, but he would go. He was, to be fair, he was working on pyro. So they were trying to get the, timing of explosions and things like that during the show, right? So it wasn't just sound check for him. They were adding a bunch of stuff for their Paris show, and they really wanted it to be a big blowout and stuff. And so they were working on pyro and stuff. But they would go right up to doors, and then we wouldn't get a sound check. So no sound check, even at the level of, that can happen if you're the opener. And we were opening for Lenny. So I was surprised. I thought we're going to get at least a half an hour. Nope. Not until 2 weeks into the tour. and the tour was only 3 weeks long. So, but if you're well rehearsed, and I will say, this is the one thing with in-ears, if you're on in-ears and you're carrying your own desk and your own mics, your sound can be very consistent because you'll be basically taking it out of rehearsal and straight into the gig. And you know what I mean? So like, because your mics are all the same, if you set your amp the same, the gain's the same, it should essentially sound really similar to what it sounded like when you were rehearsing, and then it won't matter. So that's one trick that I guess, but yeah, it's not uncommon that, as an opener, you get very little, just a line check. And that's a lot that happens on every festival, that we would play. We wouldn't do a sound check, we would show up. I'm talking with Chris, you show up and you're after this band and before this band and stuff. And if you want to sound check at a festival, you got to be there at like 10 a.m., because the festival generally starts at 1 or 2. So it's like, if you're rolling from another city the night before another gig, you're rolling into a festival, a lot of times it's just a throw and go. So it's not uncommon. And it's part of what we all have to deal with, I guess, even at that level, unless you're in a massive band and you're the headliner, might not get sound check sometimes. So, yep. So Chris says that James Brown actually designed the Ultra. Did he? I didn't realize he designed that one too. I thought that might have been before his time, but I guess that makes sense. The VTMs, good amps. A VTM is basically a Marshall with a bunch of mods that can be very, very similar to Jose if you set it a certain way, like Jose style mods. So a VTM 60 or 120, pretty good sounding amp. Big behemoth heavy things, but and sort of questionable reliability, but pretty good, good tones. GSX was a reworked Triple X. I forgot about the Triple X, right? Well, I bet the Triple X kind of came from the Ultra, right? That would be the 3-channel before, or the Rockmaster, right? Maybe, I don't know. The new high watt solid states are like a better version of the 3210 lead 100 MOSFET Marshall. I have a new Super Leads 150 and still have the 3210 lead 100 MOSFET. The high watt more Marshall than the 3210. That's interesting. Something about high watt and solid state just seems blasphemy to me, but I guess it does with Marshall too. But you never know. I mean, then you get guys like Ty Tabor, using the orange solid state and getting a killer tone, and it's in the hands. So nothing wrong with it. If it sounds great, that's all that ends up mattering, Ty's the one that taught us that. Does, a few records with a mystery rig, and then it finally leaks out what he's actually using, and it's like, oh, he's using that? Well, can't argue with the sound. Yep. I have a Trainer 50 watt head. It's a big clean head for studio. Bassman on steroids. Is that a one of the Trainer, like the old Bassman or whatever, or Bassmaster? Bassmaster. Bassmaster. Oh, what an idiot I am. Okay. Oh, PV Stereo Chorus 400. I remember that. That was a big solid state situation. Yeah, step up from the Gorilla that I started with. Yeah, that's the thing. Like back then, if you were like me, you're giving away your age there, because maybe you're about the same age as me, and so we would look at something like a Stereo Chorus 400 because we had a little 10 watt Trainer or whatever I had at the time. Go like, ooh, I wish I had that. That's gonna be a step up. PV Renown or the Stereo Chorus. Anyway, Dan Huff used a classic 50 or 30 head forever. I have a 30 still. It's in the other room. I never really liked that amp, but the 20 I really liked. The 30 always sounded like a mid-range bomb to me, and mine got kind of weird too. It didn't sound quite right. But anyway, that's interesting, Ray. You mentioned the Pauly Z show that I did. I've never really gone through and watched it. I know he released it in some form or another. So you say you really like the tone. I guess I better go listen to what it sounds like. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for mentioning that. There's a couple things I've realized recently that are out there that I've done that I've never heard. One of them is still my course for, I admit, for Guitario. I haven't checked it out. And I should go check it out and listen, because there's some performances up and stuff, I think, from it. There is a super chat. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I'm going to grab that in just a sec. Yeah. This is interesting. Entertainment speculation says, have you tried one of those nuts where each string rests on a set screw to allow fine adjustment? I haven't. Would be willing to. It sounds like a lot, but you know what I mean? Like potential for, problems. But maybe it's amazing. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, bought a Badger 35 this week. Great amp. Yeah, man, is it a great little amplifier. They really are. Badgers are terrific. It's a great design. It's been out for a long time now, but really good, with the power scaling and the really good pedal amps, nice weight, nice size. When are you launching a new solo album? I've been getting on my own case about it lately. Like basically, come on, dude, like trying to beat myself up in the head. Like, I really need to schedule getting that as a priority. So I'm dealing with my own mental, procrastination on the whole thing, I guess. But I just need to get started. I'll tell you one thing I'm doing, and this is not an excuse at all, but one thing I want to do first is implement my new computer in here, because I got a new computer coming this week. So once I get that all set up and all the plugins and everything squared away and stuff like that, then I feel like maybe to justify, okay, like, this computer I made Pete Thorn 2 on, the one I'm on right now, pretty much on this computer. So got a new setup coming. Let's justify the expense and everything by maybe recording a new album, right? I think get some more work done beyond just videos and everything that you hear me do anyway. Well, that's interesting. KSR has a cool little 50-watt power amp. They make good stuff. I've did a video for them for their preamp power amp pedal. I think it's like an amp style pedal, so must be the power amp out of that. Philip there with a super chat. Speaking of rat styles, I've always been interested. Peter Buck had used one, but never had one. What would be a setup better suited than a Marshall? So what's the question? Never had one. What would be a setup better suited than a Marshall? For a rat, you mean? Well, I mean, the thing about a rat, quite honestly, the filter control, or on some of them treble or whatever, but it's a tone control, filter control. Is it ever labeled treble? Definitely most of them I've seen it's labeled filter. It's really wide ranging. So like the sweep, and I show that in my video, it's almost like you can really cut the top end way down. So it makes the pedal quite versatile, I find, with different amplifiers. And I demonstrate that bright cap, no bright cap, whatever, you can kind of get your sound out of at least this one. But in my experience, a rat too, the sweep is massive. So into a Fender, Vox, or a Marshall, you should be able to get a sound. So I don't know that it's really amp specific, My insert's asking where a compressor goes in a pedal chain. Generally speaking, you want it pretty close to up front to first, if not soon thereafter, Some people used to run compressors in effects loops, rack style DBX ones and stuff, or in post path. But generally speaking, I like, guitar pedal compressors. Yeah, they come close to the beginning. In my rig right here, it's in loop 1. So in my pedal board, I've got a boost up front that's not in a loop on this pedal board, so I can just turn that on in front of everything and kick if I want to. But after that, the next thing is compressor. Yeah. And I would rarely turn that boost on if the compressor was on too. Maybe for a super compressed sound, because it'll kick into the compression and kick the threshold in sooner. But yeah. Okay, what else we got here? Yeah, good point here. Phillips mentioning the Sugarland stage collapse, I suspect, has made venues more risk averse to storm activity. Yeah, and there wasn't there one in, was that the Canada one, or that was a different? I remember there was a stage collapse up in Canada too that was weather related, and it was pretty severe a few years ago. Or is that the same one? I forget. But anyways, those types of events for sure, you got to take care of people. Safety first. So, Stephen Douglas, must have been a question about wireless that I missed. If this is directed at me, SLX or QLX, I'm using the Shure Accient, and I also have one of the little pedal board ones. So kind of the bottom end of their line and the top end of their line I have for my wirelesses. But generally speaking, Accient is what I tour with. Yeah. Have you considered doing a stripped down version of your solo stuff at Big Potato? Yeah, I've thought about it. Like gigs, probably that makes sense. Actually, I thought about, making, if I do another record here coming up, trying to cut as much of it kind of with bass and drums live as I can. Kind of like I cut Dirty Town. That's how I did that. I expanded on it and added some overdubs, but it was basically cut. The basics were cut live. More of that, just a little more, less layering, more trio sort of format songs with maybe just a few select overdubs on each song, for things. And then it'd be easier to play live, and it'd be a nice album to kind of present live. And then I could pick and choose from my older material stuff that would also fit in with that format. Because the only problem is in, songs like Revenge of the Nerd and stuff, they were like really layered. Like I had a lot of guitar parts going on, solo. And in that song in particular, I've almost got the solos panning across the stereo, and it's almost like 3 guitar players talking to one another. That was the idea, where I used distinct tones and the verses for each part. And so it'd be fun to do with 3 guitar players, actually. But that's probably not going to happen. But anyway, you know what I mean? So some of my previous releases have been pretty layered, and because of that, they're a little more difficult to tackle live, I think. So I would think about that going in, almost like Rush does. I feel like Rush, for as textured as their sound can be, when they recorded records, they kind of must have thought about, how are we going to do this as a trio? Because like when Geddy goes to play keys, he goes to the Taurus pedals under his feet. He's not playing bass anymore. So very rarely, if I can't think of any examples where there's keys going on, dance keys and bass guitar at the same time on a Rush record. They never did that. They made it so they could play the arrangements and perform them live. And I thought that was really cool. It just took thinking, about planning and arrangement. So I would go at it that way, maybe. Okay. Friend of mine toured sporting Thin Lizzy in the 70s. The sound guys throttled the PA for the sports set. That's common. And I don't think that's, it's not unusual, and I don't think it's also a bad thing to do. I mean, they're the headliner. You're there to support, so they should get a few more dB. I'm fine with that. I mean, that's most, whether I've been the headliner or whether I've been in the opening band. You always get a little less stage, less lights, less PA, if you're the opener, because you're the opener. And you're, generally speaking, kind of lucky to be there and get the exposure if it's opening for a good artist, So, yeah. Like I said, I didn't even when Lenny was doing it, I mean, it was Lenny's show, and he was trying to work on his pyro and, get everything just, he really worked his band hard. I mean, long sound checks and stuff, and go all the way up till doors almost. But I was like, well, kind of sucks we don't have a sound check, but it's working out anyway. We kind of go out there and throw it down every night. We were already a pretty well-oiled machine by that point. So it was like, we were used to that on festivals anyway. And it was like, we don't need no stinking sound check. Son of Pyro with a super chat. Thank you. Dig your review demo videos and the Sunday lives. Thanks. Wondering if you have any advice, opinions on some newer rotary speaker pedals or vintage sounding flangers. Let me think. Vintage sounding flangers. The Hartman, although it's not made anymore, that was a killer electro harmonics electric mistress modern clone. The Hartman flanger. Really digging to be honest, the Zelza in my, so the Zelza is a Strymon pedal. Once again, I have it on my little board here. I'll show you what it looks like if you haven't seen it. And I think the pedal is a little underrated and underexposed. That's the Zelza, the purple one. Just because maybe the name, maybe people, was Zelza, what is that? I think it might be kind of an odd name for some people, but basically it's either a 4 or 6 stage phaser that will also do chorus and flange, and quite good. I really like the flange. So it's not quite like a, it's not like a jet flanger or something like that, or really, but it is easy to adjust, and it's definitely a flange sound. You basically got a 3-way switch that for the resonance that you can have off, mild, or strong for a little bit, that kind of like more of that metallic sweep, or if you want a little more subtle and a little more like a chorus, a little more that sound, you can do that too. But anyway, so the Zelza's nice. Check that out, because you got a phaser in there too. You could have one side set up to be a flanger or it can be literally with the turn of a knob. So there's a knob on there, this one here, that's labeled voice. Turn that all the way down, all the way up to half. It's phasing. Get a little bit above half, and it becomes a flanger, and then get 3/4 the way up and further, and now it's a chorus. And so literally just on the fly, you can just turn it. Oh, I want a little more sweep like a flanger. You just turn that knob. Oh, I want a little more diffuse like a chorus. I think it's just changing the delay time. I think. Because super short, you're going to get phasing. Getting into slightly longer delay times, then it starts to sound like flanging, and then as you get longer, it becomes more diffuse like a chorus. So that's delay time as it relates. I have an analog chorus on this little board too, and it has, see the little toggle switch there on that chorus, the little one, the little tiny guy. That selects delay time on this is the Anodyne chorus from Providence. I love it. Really nice mono analog chorus. I wish it was stereo, but it's such a great sounding analog chorus pedal. But that delay time, I leave it in the middle setting. You put it in the long setting, it's very diffuse and washy. Put it in the short setting, it's just a little subtle. The middle setting is just chef's kiss. Fantastic. Love it. Yeah. So basically, if you play with a delay on a chorus, it'll get less apparent, like more subtle, weaker, say, but more defined in the lower delay times. And as you get up to more delay time, you'll find where maybe it gets to be too much, but the chorus will get more liquidy and watery the further up the delay time goes. That's the 70s shag haircut. It is. Good times. Fun. Let's go back to 1974. Yeah. Ryan had a PV Renown. Interesting. And the Roland Jazz Chorus Combo 77. That's cool. Those are cool. The little guys. Little jazzers. I forgot what spec Apple did you get. It's a Mac Studio with an M2 and upgraded, more space on the hard drive. It's got a terabyte hard drive. Somebody's asking me about lessons. Would you accept payment for a few lessons to learn some riffs on guitar? Lessons is a funny one for me. I taught a lot as a young lad. When I was 16, 17, 18, that was my job. And then I taught after that too, through my 20s. And I still enjoy it occasionally. But it's not something that to be honest, like it was something I enjoyed while I was doing it, but it was never something to be honest, that I look forward to before. I always kind of had, does anybody else have that? Like you get into it and you might have fun, like at the lesson, but leading up to it, like 10 minutes before the lesson, I'm kind of dreading it. I don't know why. That was the way that I kind of always felt about teaching. So I sort of burned out on it a little bit, I think. Maybe I used to enjoy it more. Like I say, then sometimes I'd get 5 minutes into a lesson, I'd be having a great time, like, because the student was good or engaging, or they'd come up with they'd practice really hard that week, or they had an interesting thing they wanted to do. And then I got into it too, learning that week, because you learn when you're teaching. And I'd go, well, that was great. What was I so adverse to, but I just teaching. I know I actually pride myself. I don't toot my own horn a lot, but I'm a good teacher. I know that. I know I can teach and break down, because I think the essence of being a good teacher is taking each student as an individual and then assessing where they're at, where they're trying to get, and then breaking down information in a way that they can understand and absorb at their speed. For example, I was always like, I don't understand why people can't seem to understand modes. I feel like I could explain modes to people in about 10 minutes in a way that they would retain and go, oh, that makes sense. So it's just about explaining things in a way that the student can absorb and keeping the interest level. You can't go too slow for certain people, and you can't go too fast for certain other people, and how to work with them on their little individual thing. So I felt like I was good at that, like because I feel like some people have a hard time slowing down and explaining things. And right, we've all had that. I've had teachers like that. So anyways, I prided myself on that. But long story short, I just kind of realized too over time that teaching is something that it takes a lot of your time, private lessons and individual lessons. And you know, I used to teach up to 35 people a week, you know, so it's not like I didn't do it. And I realized it becomes a little bit all encompassing, and it's what you are then, you know, then you're a guitar teacher. And I felt like a lot of the same information you get, you repeat, you know, and you um, end up spending a lot of your time and hours repeating the same things over and over again. So that brings me to the course thing, you know, teaching on YouTube or teaching, you know, we all, you know, have looked at like TrueFire and like the different courses you can get and stuff like that. And I actually think they're like really great. You, you know, you could probably get more out of a lesson. I don't want to say more, like, you know, certain teachers have had a profound effect on me in person, you know, and, you know, my direction. They've been able to sort out things in my technique, or, you know, things that I'm maybe doing wrong. And I can remember little things they said, and that stuck with me over the years. And that might not be something that happens to you from a video, or like, you know, the old REH videos, or something you see on YouTube, or even a TrueFire course or whatever. But because video courses are edited and done, you know, in a succinct kind of way, you know, with the information kind of curated and stuff like that, I think there's like a lot of value in, you know, what you pay for a subscription, for instance, to like a TrueFire or something like that. Um, and then you're able to watch those videos over and over again. They're easily accessible. You can, you know, it's a more organized way of learning, I think. So you got to balance if you need personal attention, taking a private lesson with somebody thing, because that could be, you know, monumental. I mean, but you could also probably waste a lot of time and money that route that maybe would be better spent, you know, on a curated, you know, targeted video course that you can go back and review and all that. How did you guys feel about it? I don't know. I just feel like I get the most. Yeah. And then so when it comes to me teaching, I feel like my time would be best spent creating more like courses or video things that then can be, and it's also, you just, to quite honestly, it's more from a financial standpoint and stuff like that. You've created something now that earns you money in your sleep, you know? So you teach it once, you make a good product, good high quality thing with a lot of information, make it super value packed, you put it out there, that will carry on for years and years and years and years. I mean, people still buy my Guitar Nerd lesson from the uh that was over 10 years ago that I made that, you know, and I still daily get people that I made it available for $5 eventually. People still buy that. So it's interesting to me. It's an interesting discussion, you know. I have occasionally done guitar lessons with people, but it's pretty rare these days, like, you know, in recent times, but it's pretty rare. And it's just out of also just not having, like, you know, people were asking me, when are you going to record any record? It's like, that is really what I want to spend my time, you know. I really feel like I should get some stuff done musically, you know, as I get older. You know, time just gets shorter. Just picked up a JMP1 preamp at a local yard sale for cheap. I have some room to spend on a nice tube power amp to pair it with. Any suggestions? Fryette is kind of, I think, kind of the only game in town these days for tube amps. I mean, there might be a few others out there. What do you guys think? What else is available? Just opening up my Nest here because it's getting really hot in here. So I'm gonna turn it down a couple degrees, get a little AC going. Uh, um, the Fryette one spacer seems to be very popular. You know, that's the one that I think the fella I mentioned from Deftones uses. I think that's what Offspring's using. So I would just go that way, you know, if you don't mind spending the cash, or get a used, you know, something like if you don't want to spend that much, you know, get a used Mesa 5050 or something like that, you know, probably decent. I never really liked the 20 watters with EL84s. They were kind of not so, but like the Mesa 5050, that was a decent 6L6 kind of power amp. You could go that route. You know, if you want a Marshall, it's a JMP1. Maybe if you want a EL34, I would probably go Fryette, to be honest. Get the new Fryette one if you can. I have a Fender Deluxe with a UA Lion, which is a crazy greater tone to such a wonderful sound. Have you ever tried the pedal? Oh, you run a Fender Deluxe with a Lion? Yeah, I have a Lion. I did a little video for it, actually. Not a full bit video, but there's a YouTube short of me playing the Lion and playing. What song was I playing? I think I was doing Mean Street. and they did the solo with it and stuff, and it that thing's killer. I mean, it's really great. Santiago did a wonderful job on that one, and the rest of the UA team. Okay. Rush used to always think of live when writing and arranging, other than apparently one song in each album where that was not a consideration. Losing it. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah, losing it. Obviously, they had the violin solo, so couldn't recreate that live. But then they did do it with a violinist, and I think Ben Mink actually came out and played it with them on a tour. So, anyways, yeah, I just find treating a supporting act poorly is not needed. Speaking of Rush, they've got some great stories about that. Getty and Aerosmith and stuff like that. Do unto others as you would have done unto you is a good way to live. Yeah, I mean that's why they speak highly of Kiss and different bands that they've toured with over the years. But yeah, Getty's take on the opening bands and stuff is pretty interesting. But I'll tell you, yeah, you don't want to be treated poorly, obviously. I had some bad experiences with, like downright just shitty, rude. I think I've told the story on here once, this production manager that didn't want me to use the bathroom beside the stage right before we went on, and was just being a jerk about it. And I got in his face, and then it blew up into this thing. It was pretty stupid. It's generally like one bad apple, I remember when I was touring with Jules, she kind of had we were touring with Rob Thomas and his camp. I never had a problem with him. I was, as a sideman, I'm generally not into these I'm not part of the conversations, but the artists sometimes would be, because if they feel shafted, then they'd get into it with, maybe it's the support singer or artist, and they're told they're not going to get a sound check or to get off stage, or the sound check's over or whatever, and then they flip out a little bit, and that kind of happened. It was a not to throw people under the bus, but there was a particular incident with, I remember, just Jewel and it was all kind of like good natured, but she's tough. Jewel is like gnarly. Growing up in Alaska and living in her van and all that stuff, if you know anything about her, and so and she looks like this, she's very pretty and everything else, and looks like, but don't mess with her, right? Because she'll be like, so I just remember like her getting like soundcheck's over, like some, it's just gotta open doors, and the tour manager for the other band or whatever being kind of or production manager, probably maybe it was a stage manager. There's all these different jobs, right? It can just be one of them that's a jerk, but then it ends up sticking in your head as a bad memory or something of a tour. Anyway, she, at the end of I remember standing out there sound checking, and she said, "Well, you're kind of a dick, aren't you?" On the mic, and yeah, like you're just kind of like, it was the way he said it, and she just threw it right back at him, like on the PA, now it's on, once he said that, it's like, so they kind of, but it was kind of a co-headline tour. That was the way it was explained to me. So I think, and Rob was lovely. I mean, I remember Rob Thomas, he was a sweetheart, never a problem. You never know, sometimes it can be like the artist, it's coming down from them, but they use the other guys to be the bad guy, whatever, but it's also stupid, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like most tours that I've been on, I will say in recent times, and as I've gotten older, and, this is when we're all in our late 20s, early 30s, and everybody's in their late 20s and early 30s, and the production managers, maybe 30 or 40 or what, you know what I mean? Like, and then everybody gets older, and now it's like, nobody does that shit anymore. Like, once you're over the age of 40, everybody seems to chill a little, and they've got enough stories of their own where they know it sucks to be on the bad end. So you think about other people a little more. You're a little more like, there's no, if there's older people in the business, there's very few jerks, I find, unless they're entrenched in a camp that they've been in forever and there's no chance of them getting fired or whatever. But the way you've maintained and gotten older and still get work in this business is by being cool. I can't stress that enough. And so when people flex and do stupid stuff as you get older, and that, or there's, tempers or that kind of thing, it just seems silly. Like, and nobody wants to deal with it, and there's no need for it. Everybody knows how to do these jobs now. by the time it's nice. It's nice to get to. It's one of the cool things about growing older in the business is there's less of that, and the ego, and everybody, has figured out that stuff is just annoying and unnecessary, and so kind of cool. But anyways, will you be accompanying Chris's daughter anytime again to play? We occasionally do TV and stuff like that together. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a long time, to be honest. We did that. The last thing I did with her was the Tonight Show. It was it was the Tonight Show, and it was kind of coming out of pandemic. So it was a minute ago. It's like 2 years ago at least. Was it Tonight Show or was it? I can't remember the order of the shows that we did, but we did the Tonight Show, and we also did one of the last. Who was the English guy that I'm already forgetting his name? That's not on the air anymore. We did his show. I can't remember. You know who I'm talking about. He did his last show last year or whatever, but we did his show. That was the last one we did, I think, actually. Anyways, and yeah, so I don't know. I'm always there to, the Cornell's family will reach out once in a while and ask me if I can help facilitate something. I'm always happy to do that. So hasn't happened for a while. The last one we did, I thought was the best thing that we ever did. So I thought she sang beautifully, and it sounds really good. I'm very happy with the performance. String quartet and bass and drums. Thanks for the answer. Basically, I've written songs that I have in my head, but unable to transpose them to my fingers. I see. Okay. Well, that's something that you just have to learn where the notes are in your head, and then transfer that to the fingerboard. And I know maybe that's easier said than done. I wonder how, if you sing them, when you try singing them into your phone, like the melody, and then play it back and listen to it and see if you can find the notes on the guitar. Try that instead of just singing it and then trying to find the notes. Do it almost like it's somebody else singing to you, like by recording it, and then play it back and then see if you can then find, and then you can rewind, So get the idea out of your mind onto a recorder and then play it back and hunt around for the notes, Maybe sing it a few times so you can kind of, and then, or loop it, and maybe that'd be helpful. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? By the way, your PT212 is an amazing cab. Thanks. Tried it on multiple combos. Always makes them sound better. That's awesome. I'm glad you like it. Which one is it? Is it the horizontal one or the more sort of diagonal one for the PT15? I wonder which one you have. Christian, yeah, I've made the biggest jumps in my ability during times of taking lessons in person and playing live with other musicians. That's cool. It makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, like, certainly playing live will teach you things that you can't learn any other way. 100%. Like, playing live is one of the best lessons you can ever, you will find out what works and what doesn't, and you'll have to think on the fly. And Danny V says, "Where's that for $5?" I believe there's a link on my website, which is sorely out of date, but the link isn't. You can go find the link on my website. Go PeteThorn.com. I'm going to redo my entire, especially with more music or, new record, time for a new website, new thing. So, yeah. Okay. Synergy Sin. Oh yeah, Sin 5050. I have one of those right here. Pretty good little power amp. It was largely designed by Fryat. So, Sin 5050 got a very loud fan in it. It's the only thing, but the Fryat might too, because you kind of need a fan. It's the one thing with the single space, and it's small to cram some stuff in there, like that much, transformers and tubes and stuff like that. So fan is kind of in a way around it. Excuse me. Yeah. I've learned a lot recently going back and watching Pete's 5-minute lessons. So I did those a number of years ago. Mind brain is more attuned to shorter bursts of learning. I agree. That's why I like doing those. Those I kind of like doing. Maybe I should do more of those. I know I'm always saying I should do something and then I don't do it. But yeah. Bradley says, nice hair. Thanks. It's finally getting there. I feel like. Give it another 5 months and things are going to look interesting, I think. Yeah, I love Jewel. Always had a huge crush on her. I like Jewel too. I mean, she she's like she's funny and I always enjoyed her company. I had some good talks with her too, and I really I liked her, she was cool. She's really honest and there's no kind of BS. I mean, I enjoyed playing with her. I remember once she had to learn Needle and the Damage Done for something. And so I go, I know that song. I can teach it to you. So I taught her how to play that. And I sat there and I played it and sang it in front of her. And she'd never heard me sing. She goes, oh, you have a lovely voice. And I was like, It was a nice compliment, And I don't sing often. So it was like from a good singer to say that, I was like, I felt very, I don't know. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, she's got a thing. Have a hard time imagining Tim Pierce ever losing his cool. Yeah, I've certainly never seen it. Although I bet if it happened, it would be scary. Tim's very he's funny, man, and he's got a sharp wit. And when he doesn't like something, he might say something kind of like under his breath, and it'll be very funny. He'll say something. I'll keep things private, but there's been a couple things that he's said that cracked me up, and he did it in a very kind of came out of the blue, and it was really funny. Tim's just very high functioning. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. Let's see. Rush treated the Runaways bad. Really? What's their story? I'd love to know. I wonder. Do you ever do SIR clinics? Yeah, I've done a bunch actually. So I did a whole Asia tour. I did a couple things in Europe. I've done clinics all over the US with them. Yeah, been all over the place with them. As far away as Australia and Scotland, and doing SIR clinics. So it's time for more soon. I'm really enjoying, for instance, this this video I'm doing right now with my pedal board, because it's all about this new little pedal board I have here, and I'm sitting right here in front. You can see the edge of the switcher there. Creating sounds and then coming up with a part in this little piece of music, like I always do, I guess, but really unique individual sounds, and then kind of going, well, here's an example of this pedal, and here's an example of this pedal. So I have an idea for that kind of format for a clinic. That's musical and also sound based, of how I create tones and get inspired by them. So that'll probably be the next thing that I develop. I would love to do it in conjunction with new amplifier as well. But and there's more stuff coming as well. So I love doing stuff with SIR though, and clinics and stuff like that. And I always want to do it beyond the here's some licks, here's me jamming over a track. Okay, you guys got any questions? It's like I don't really like that format for clinics. I always feel like I want to develop an idea so that what you're almost like not a course, but it's like there's a set kind of curriculum going in, you know what I mean, or whatever, what I'm going to cover, so that there's real value added. For instance, this Pete, I've been watching your So You Want to Be a Pro series and learning so much. Thank you. Playing shows every week now. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's excellent. I'm glad you're getting something out of those. That's what I mean. I like to do things where you get, if you're coming to a clinic or whatever, I'm making a video, I want you to get something out of it. So I try and do that in my demo videos too. Like, the video for this guy, it's like, it's marketing. They're making a pedal that they want you to buy, right? But at the end of the day, I try and do it from the sense of like, well, I've never really done a video on a rat, so let's talk about the rat, educate a little bit on the rat, on how different people use it, how the different settings work, and so I did a little on Nuno and how because I discovered recently he uses a rat to tighten up a Marshall and kind of filter and go get a more sort of percussive, as he puts it, sound. So I did a little bit on that, and we tried it, in the video. So that's what I try and do, is always a little, you know, a good. I heard a saying that made a lot of sense to me. It was like good marketing is one part education and one part, like, I can't remember exactly. I'm gonna screw it up now, but it made sense, basically saying like part of it is selling the product, but another part of it is educating to make the interesting. And and then I try and tie it up with both those things: education, also educating about the product, so to get people and hopefully get people excited about it, and also presenting it in a best light in a musical thing that hopefully is interesting. So that's what I try and do in my videos, even when they're demo videos for pedals or whatever. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. I want to see a Tim and Pete show with Grace Bowers. Oh wow, I would love that. I really like her. She's terrific. Just great, soulful, wonderful. Love it. Yeah. I was watching Chris Buck the other day, at the show, at the Cardinal Black show, and watching how he plays. And I was like, you watch people in the crowd, because I was actually sitting in an area up above most of the Troubadour audience and watching from the side. And I could look down on people and really see how they were reacting. And I found that interesting as he's soloing, and you look at people so engaged in his guitar solo. And he's really singing, he's a lead singer on the guitar. It's a wonderful thing about his phrasing is he's got that down. And I thought to myself, why would you ever want to do anything else than that? That's the thing, not sweep arpeggios or whatever necessarily, unless you want to throw one in every now. But you ultimately, if you can sing on the instrument, no matter what your instrument is, I remember my violin teacher saying that the violin is such a powerful instrument because it's the closest instrument to the human voice, because there's no frets. We don't have frets in our voice, in exact pitches, and we slide around and move around. So on a violin, and it's in the range of a human voice, that you can, you can really be expressive on violin when you're playing. And guitar, although there's frets, I feel like, we can bend and we can do things with whammy bar and do things, like Jeff Beck did. He was a lead singer on the guitar, very much so, so when Chris plays like that, and you see the connection, I can see the audience, you can see the connection between what he plays and an instant reaction. It's like, that's it right there. That's what you, even if you're playing metal or if you're playing, Michael Schenker was a great soloist that played it so melodic. And John Sykes in his own way, when he'd play the solo to Crying in the Rain or whatever, and get the melodic parts and then punctuated with speed. It was like, I love that, so maybe that's my favorite kind of, maybe it just speaks to me. I've identified my favorite kind of guitar playing is that kind of like singers, but they're singing on the guitar. Yeah. Jewel is playing a 64 63 non-reverse Firebird right now. She's so cool. She is really cool. I wonder if Melissa got her into playing more electric guitar. That'd be interesting, because Melissa has had her own journey with that, and they're on tour together. And I thought, God, I could be in that band. I play with both those ladies. I could do a Jewel set and a Melissa set. I just have to brush up a little bit. But anyways, I'm not on that tour. Some other guy is. Melissa, I think they're using Melissa's band, and she doesn't really have a guitar player now because she plays guitar. Like, a second guitar player. She's the guitar player. She wants to be the lead guitar player and stuff. So that was, as she said in interviews, Pete Thorn talked himself right out of a job. She said that in an interview with Kenny Aronoff. I guess I did, but because I was encouraging her to, do it, play lead guitar. Where did I get this shirt? This shirt is Heavy Metal Spirit Clocks and Colors is show you my belly. Clocks and Colors. It's a jewelry company, so they make this. So yeah, little North Star situation. They make great rock and roll jewelry, good stuff. So they made that ring as well. Yeah, Clocks and Colors. Clocks and Colors, ladies and gentlemen. Colors spelled the British way with a U. Check it out online, clocksandcolors.com. You can order one of these shirts. What is the most heavy metal spirited song you've played on? Ooh. Heavy metal spirited song I've played on. Like on a recording? I don't know. I'd really have to think about that. Go back and go, what's the heaviest thing I ever did? I don't know. To be honest, it's probably like some of the demo stuff uh, that I've done for heavy. Like I've gone back and gone, that's a pretty cool metal song. Going, maybe I should record this, or maybe I should do a whole record of heavy stuff. I've thought about doing that. Lauren says, I think Tim Pierce is so cool manner because he has no fear of being straight up honest and frank. He has no ill will, so he's on the right side of things. Yeah, he is in a zen space, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't get upset or he isn't. Yes, he's got a great, especially when it comes to just music and everything like that. I mean, he's got a very like um he's just super in control, and really knows, and he works really hard, so he's confident because he's got the ethic and everything to back up, you know, like he's always prepared and all that. So, but he's a great human being, man. I miss him actually a lot. I should do some more with him. Um, yeah, wasn't Nuno's Randall basically a rat inside of the amp? Oh, I don't know. Is it? That's interesting. Could be like the one, that kind of crazy looking one with the kind of like that head with had a VU meter on it or something, didn't it? And like the cabinet had a really unique look. I thought it was kind of cool looking. I mentioned Brian Ray, and he said he knows how to elevate an opportunity. Can you explain that a little more? Oh, well, Brian is a very smart guy. He's also very much like Tim in some ways. He's maybe a little more intense than Tim, but he's a very, I mean, Brian's been around a long time, and he's been playing with Etta James in the mid-'70s, and he's still out there playing with Paul McCartney. So he's had a great long career, and he's been a great mentor for me and a big help in my career. And he just has a way of spotting an opportunity. So I don't know if I want to tell the whole story or whatever, but it's basically like the way that he was able to find his way to Paul McCartney is an interesting story, I think. And there's a lot of lesson in it. And it's basically like I'll just say broadly, I think what Brian's really good at is sticking to his guns, what he wants to do, not compromising. Because if you compromise, for instance, if you take every gig that comes along, just because we're musicians, we're conditioned to work, right? And when work comes along, if you're anything like me, it's hard to turn down because you're like, I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from. That's a lot of being self-employed, and right. So I bet there's a lot of you out there that can relate to that. And even if the money's kind of low, or can be, if you're a touring musician, is it a van tour? Oh, we're going to be in a van. Oh, for 2 months. Oh, and the money's kind of low. It's like, but you'll still go like, oh, maybe I should go because I'm not making any other money this summer. What if something else doesn't come along? That kind of thing. Everybody's got their different rules and what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And some people acquiesce, or some people give in, and then they end up maybe unhappy. Or so knowing your limits and your just your personal boundaries and stuff like that, with all that and what you're willing to do and not do, balanced with guaranteed employment, it's all very important, right? Well, Brian has a pretty masterful way of dealing with all that, and I think he's also a good negotiator. And he's just really smart, and he's also he's a consummate professional. So if you're hiring him, you're going to get he's going to knock it out of the park, right? So which is, let's just get that out of the way, kind of necessary. You have to be that, because as a side guy, I'm talking as a side man in this business, as a side guy, it's like you got to be on your game, or else somebody else will come along that will be. There's no time for kind of rock star shenanigans or falling apart or that kind of thing. So so anyway, but he, more than all of that, we were talking the other day about Andrew Watt, me and Dave Friedman. Andrew Watt's the guy that produced the latest Stones album. He's not that old, he's 30s. He's also produced a whole bunch of other big records, and he played bass on that Stones record, the newest one. He worked with Ozzy a lot, bunch of people, right? And I was like, that guy's a go-getter. Like, that guy knows how to push and get into, it's a little bit of that. Like, it's career stuff. Like, how do you maneuver your way into these situations? And it's a little bit of, glimpsing an opportunity and knowing who to talk to and who to ask the right questions to, and how to just kind of get your way in it's like business world stuff. I mean, you could probably read a lot of books about, how to create opportunities for yourself, or time management, or influencing people, or how to negotiate, or all this, different. It's a lot of that. And if you've got a handle on that as a musician, you'll find yourself in interesting positions. So, funny. I don't know if I want to open this can of worms, but I got into this a little bit this week with regards to the first Cheryl Crow album. So I was friends with Kevin Gilbert, who was Cheryl's boyfriend at the time that they made the Tuesday Night Music Club album, which was her first release. Not the first record she made, because she made a record before Tuesday Night Music Club that was shelved with Hugh Padgham producing, and it was a pop record, and I think you can hear it on YouTube. I think it ended up getting leaked or something. But anyways, that record got shelved. She's with Kevin. Nobody's happy with the musical direction, and Kevin ends up hooking her up with Bill Bottrell, producer, and then a bunch of guys, and they all went in, kind of changed up the, I think they kind of went, why don't we try going for a different earthy kind of Americana, Ricky Lee Jones kind of trip for you, and let's write some music, and they did Tuesday Night Music Club, which of course had Leaving Las Vegas and some other, Strong Enough, and one other big hit on it, I think, did quite well and launched her into, her career. There's a lot of people that tell then Kevin and her broke up, and then she went on to self-produce her second record and stuff. And there's a lot of like ill will towards her kind of over the years and stuff, saying, oh, she used them and didn't give them credit and all that kind of stuff. It's all based sort of, as far as I know, on her kind of, the breakup, and then also like her going on Letterman and sort of giving a clumsy answer to a question that was asked about the song Leaving Las Vegas and if it was autobiographical or not. And she said, well, yeah, sort of. It's actually sort of about LA or something. That was her answer, right? Well, the record was recorded by her and written by her and a group of guys. There was a movie coming out called Leaving Las Vegas as well. And maybe they took the title and went, hey, this is kind of cool to riff on. Why don't we write a song about this? What does this make us think of? So she sort of said, I wrote it autobiographically on Letterman. And that was the source of so much vitriol and hatred from people online over the years, that saying she's just dropped them, and, they really made the record and she had no talent and all this kind of stuff. So the reason I'm telling this story is because I was there when that happened. I was Kevin's friend, and I used to work for him sometimes, playing on his he scored for TV. So I would go to his studio, not far from where I live in Pasadena now. I would go to his studio and play on shows like Tales from the Crypt and stuff, play guitar solos and stuff. And he also was his Kevin Gilbert. This is Kevin Gilbert, one of the Tuesday Night Music Club guys, a musical genius, young guy, super talented, played every instrument under the sun, that I got to know a little bit a few years before his untimely death, and spent some time with him. And I called him, I would classify him as definitely a friend of mine. I was, for a time, roommates with his best friend, Robert Ferris. And I also recorded a bunch of music with Robert's girlfriend at the time, Jen Gross. We had a songwriting thing. Kevin used to come over and shower because he was living in a studio for a while, but he didn't even have a bathroom. This is a guy who was like successful, making money, doing music and scoring and stuff. And for a time, he was like living out of his studio with no shower. So he would literally come over in the morning when I was there working with Jen. We had an 8-track D88. Drum kit, acoustic guitar, bass, and he would show up and he'd go, what's that you guys are working on, after his shower or whatever, and I go, oh, is this tune or whatever I played for him on guitar, and go, let's record that right now. And he'd sit down at the drums, 2 mics, record drums, pick up the bass, play bass, I'd play guitar, and in 45 minutes we'd have a song, done that sounded pretty cool, like an 8-track demo. And so I recorded with him. I worked with him like that on numerous tunes. He would come out and play live with us with that project. He would come out and play drums. We used to play around LA. This is a dude I knew, and I was there the night that Cheryl Crow show aired on the Letterman show. And I was there and saw his reaction and how pissed off he was and stuff like that. And I want to tell you that as his friend and as a person that was around all those people then, I didn't get it then, and I don't get it now. The complaints over the kind of like the belly aching and stuff from these are very talented guys, and they all made that record together, But that record has a name on the cover, and it's Cheryl Crow. And if you're Cheryl Crow and you're promoting your record, if you go on TV and somebody asks you a question about a song, what did you write this about? Are you supposed to say, well, I actually wrote it with 5 other dudes and we were all kind of talking and collaborating? I mean, I guess you could, but it's not they're the writers. Like, look at any album. Look at the newest Beyonce album. How many writers are on every song? Like, go look at it on Wikipedia, most pop records these days, some of them it's insane the amount of people listed. Do they go in interviews and talk about co-collaborators and name every single one and talk about how it was really like a collaborative project and how maybe a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a Beyonce record or it's a Jewel record or it's a, whatever, like, right. That's not the way it works with solo artists when they're doing promo for the records and stuff like that, unless it's like Alison Krauss and Robert Plant. Okay, now you've got a co-bill thing. They're both going to give each other due time, credit, right? I mean, that's just, I live in this world. I've done this job now back then I'd never done anything. I was 22, 23 years old. At this point, I've done a butt ton of work with I will say, some of the greatest vocalists ever and singers and solo artists, Don Henley and Melissa Etheridge and Chris Cornell and all these people. I didn't understand it then, and I don't understand it now. Had I been part of that Tuesday Night Music Club group and worked with Cheryl and then, disparaged her and stuff like that, I don't get it. Like, what was she supposed to do? Now, I think a lot of it was stemming from, their relationship, and they had broken up and stuff, and he had that sting as well. So that makes a lot of sense. But that was not something I just didn't get it with. I was like, back then I remember him being pissed, and I remember thinking, this is a guy that makes probably at least a couple $100,000 a year, scoring, doing music for other people, production, I had no idea, but he was, he did fine. And he seems, I loved him, and when he would come over and he would play with us and stuff, he was so great when he wasn't doing his own thing. But when it had anything to do with his, the Cheryl or his success, there was a darkness, and I always felt like that was sad, and so it taught me a lot being involved with that, seeing those people in that situation and stuff. And I realized I was out of my depth. I realized that I was too young to understand exactly what was going on psychologically. It was the first time I really had felt like I was up against a wall with people that were extremely talented and maybe more mixed up than I understood or could fathom, or needed. You know what I'm saying? And it was the 90s. There wasn't this, like, it was a little bit more like the, figure it out on your own, like Gen X stuff, like nowadays people talk a lot more about mental health and stuff like that, but back then I felt like it was weird. I guess I was falling back a little bit on my parents and my upbringing, which I felt like, the great parts of my upbringing, I was like, there's some unhealthy stuff going on here that I don't think is good. That's a lot of ego. And anyway, that's a long ass story, but I'm just saying, I don't think Cheryl did anything wrong. That's for sure. In the reason I brought this up is because we were talking about Brian. I'm going to tie all this in, talking about Brian Ray and other friends I have, Tim Pierce. There's people that know how to, in certain situations, the negative word would be manipulate. The positive word would be to maximize the situation for their potential. You know what I mean? To work themselves to navigate their way into a position that is beneficial for them. That's all I'm saying. Cheryl, yes, she had that skill. She knew how to get people on her side. She knew how to get people excited and working with her so that she could further her career 100%. But that's every friggin' artist I've ever worked with. They all know how to do that. They all know how to. None of them are, idiots when it comes to, figuring out how to get people on their side and on their team and stuff like that to further projects. So it's just a skill. So I think Cheryl certainly, when she went out and did the second record, I know she started it with Bill Bottrell and then that got scrapped. Nothing against Bill, brilliant. All these guys are brilliant, but for whatever reason this was happening, she bailed. And I remember thinking, back then, like, well, I guess that's the last we'll hear of her, because I've heard she's had problems with her second record. And now all that group of guys, all I knew was their side of the story then. Well, she came out with the next record, and it was All I Wanna Do Is Have, or was that on the first record? No, this If It Makes You Happy was the second record. That's right. So all of a sudden that song comes out, and it's like, oh my God. It's like, that's a hit song, and there's like, I think 4 hits or something off that second record. And it's, I think, regarded by a lot of people as Cheryl's strongest record. So she came out and went, you know what? Here we go, and did it herself. Basically, played a lot. I mean, there's other people, Jeff Trott, all kinds of people on that record, but um, it's a great record, and she did it with, And so I think that I was like instantly like, well, proof's in the pudding. She made a killer record. So, anyways, blah blah. That's that story. John says you could be a therapist, Pete. I would probably drive myself insane, but I think a lot about these things, so maybe too much. Yeah. Eston says that Les Paul shaped pool in Palm Springs is a local landmark. That's Brian Ray actually has the coolest swimming pool that you've ever seen, which is a Les Paul pool. He actually has a swimming pool, and it's big, and it's a Les Paul. And in the headstock end, it says Les Pool with a light. Yeah. I think the headstock is the hot tub, actually. No, yeah, I think the neck comes all the way down. It's like kind of like a lap pool, and then the body of the guitar, and then the headstock. And I think that's as I remember. Yeah. Brian's he's a great guy, successful cat. And yeah, musicians have to be entrepreneurs. We do. Yeah. Otherwise you end up, wallowing around in the, yeah. To say Cheryl Crow has no talent is ridiculous. I agree. That's what I'm saying, is she did that next record. She played guitar, bass, keys, whole bunch of stuff, produced it, and she's a killer singer. And she was the stupid thing about all this is she was also a pro. She was a background singer for Michael Jackson and Don Henley. So she toured as a for quite a few years. She was not super young when she got the deal. I think she was 30 something when she did the record, so she wasn't like a teenager or something. She'd been a touring professional musician, playing instruments and singing for quite some time before that first, before the Tuesday Night Music Club record ever came out. So it was goofy, but anyways, yeah, she's great. And I know numerous people. I've never met Cheryl myself, but I know numerous people that have played in her band, and people always, they liked her, and I didn't hear any bad things. So yeah. Spill the beans. Did Kev write her first album? No, I don't think so. I think that I don't really know who wrote on the first record. Maybe he did. Maybe they did, but they shelved it because it's not good, I think, or it was a direction that she didn't want to go in. That's what I heard. Finished it, and she just didn't. It was like nobody liked it. It was super fluffy pop. And I don't think she's, with her musical style and what she's gravitated towards, she's been pretty consistent over the years. She's done all kinds of different stuff, but she'd certainly, I think it was more a question of her just finding her voice, what she wanted to do, because she's been pretty consistent. It's not like she deviated and went back to making dance music or something like that after, no, she's a genuine songwriter and stuff. So anyways, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Peter Stroud has a similar take about working with her. Yeah, Peter's a longtime friend and great collaborator of hers. And I should mention, I have met. We did come to think of it. The Five for Fighting tour, we opened for her for like a month or two on her summer tour in 2002. So I did meet her then. That was a long time ago, 20 something years ago. But Peter was touring with her then, and it was a wonderful tour. It was great. There was no bad vibe from the top or whatever. And she's got a lot of longtime collaborators that play with her over the years and spent a lot of time with her, including Peter. So that doesn't happen if people are, jerks or whatever. And she'll just decide to, my friend John Button was her bass player for a time. The next tour, she decided she was going to play bass. So, and she's that good. I'll be the bass player on this tour. And so John was unfortunately out of a job then, but, Excellent story about the tortured genius that was Kevin Gilbert. Yeah, I knew him really well, man. I mean, dude was, you know, yeah, tortured genius, I would say, Um, Cheryl Unreleased sounds way too much like Kevin's writing. That could be. I never talked to him about that, actually. I have no idea if he wrote that record or not, because this conversation was so centered when I met him on the release of the Tuesday Night Music Club album and that project, and I never asked him about the previous record and what happened. I just know it was Hugh Padgham produced. They were about 500 grand deep into recording, and it got shelved. $500,000, I think. I knew that, but I didn't know who wrote the songs or anything. Wouldn't surprise me if actually he did. But, Kevin was a guy that he worked with Madonna. He worked with a bunch of different people. So it could be like, yeah, you want to make this kind of record? Sure. And then they went in and did it and did like a dance pop record or something like that, whatever it is. I've only heard it a little bit. Like, I don't even remember. I remember listening to it and going, ooh, yeah, don't like that very much. But, and I know why they changed direction. But, if that's his writing, then, okay, let's mix it up. Let's do a different thing and get into Tuesday Night Music Club, and let's all different vibe, totally organic, super earthy. Like I say, like, I think it was, if you ask me, I mean, it's like, let's do a Ricky Lee Jones kind of thing, and so anyway, all right, blah blah blah. Digging that Explorer behind you, love it too. I'm a big fan. Okay, what else are we talking about? Clapton liked her. Yeah, they dated for a little bit, I do believe. Been watching your pedal demos a lot lately. You've helped me make a few wise choices to upgrade my pedal board. Thanks for the demos. Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad to be of help. Okay. Her ballad on the Point Break soundtrack was nice, but far removed from the style that got her famous. I don't remember that song, which one it would be, but surprised Gibson hasn't come after him for the headstock shaped hop dub. He's a Gibson guy. I'm sure they've got that. It's a brilliant ode to a Les Paul. I don't know. It's not like he's selling it, so they can't come after him for anything. Yeah. Last week I saw the great Greg Koch and his trio band, unreal guitar player and sweet guy. He is the nicest guy. He's a gentle giant. What a guitar player. Oh my God. Just incredible. Just incredible player, right? Unbelievable. So 100% on Greg. Amazing live and super nice. He sat at my dinner table before a gig and had a nice chat. Yeah, he's a really good cat. He's obviously, works hard. He plays every day. Seems to really, practice his butt off. And it's 2:00. I've gone 2 hours and 17 minutes. Okay, I guess I'm done. That's enough for today, right? I didn't realize it was so late already. I guess I got involved in these stories, and it's like, but I gotta go because I'm gonna go to taking a little day off today because it's hot as hell here. So a little beach day, I think. And I'm gonna go get on with that. So it's been lovely hanging with you all. And I hope that you found the show somewhat interesting. And please come back and see me again next week. For videos this week, you're going to see a video on this new pedal board of mine coming out. And I'm excited to get that out because I'm enjoying it. A fun little piece of music that has some ambient clean tones, some fuzz tones, some delayed time madness, some phasing, some chorusing, some flanging, all that good stuff going on. And I talk a little bit about the Illumine reverb from Nunaber that you can still get through Quilter bought Nunaber, I think. So a wonderful reverb pedal, tiny and great sounding for the size. And yeah, I'll get into all of it this week. You guys like pedal board videos, right? So I've been wondering how many people are going to go, that's still a big board. It's 24 inches. It's not big. I built it on a Temple board that weighs 3.5 pounds with no pedals on it. It's so light. And 24 inches wide, this wide pedal board. I think it's a really nice size. Can do most of the things my big board can do, but I don't have a wah on it. I don't have an expression pedal. Those are the two main differences, I would say. and I don't have an H9, which sort of limits me. I can't do harmony. But those are all things I could just throw on the side and add if I needed to, or a little satellite board or something. Anyways, okay, I'm going to split. You'll see a video on this pedal board this week, as well as some other pedal stuff coming soon your way. I got all kinds of stuff to do. I'm going to do Strymon Big Sky 2, you know, the newest one video. Looking forward to that. Should be fun. The 1987 great sounding pedal from Volta. Awesome sounding Marshall in a box that is actually programmable if you want it to be. It's incredible. Really, really sounds good. Hot Rod Multi-Channel Plexi. It's the Hot Rod Multi-Channel Plexi 1987 Pro from Volta. Okay, time to go. Getting stupid. Take care, everybody. See you next week. Bye.